Unbelievable revelation. Killer of Menglong exposed by his mother's shocking evidence. How could such devastating proof have been hidden until now? And why is it only emerging at this moment? The truth is darker, more dramatic, and more heartbreaking than anyone imagined. Join red carpet revealed as we uncover and explore every shocking detail, starting right now. The silence that had haunted this case for months was shattered in an instant when Menglong's grieving mother stepped forward with shocking evidence that no one had dared to imagine. The revelation hit like a lightning bolt, igniting the nation in disbelief, sorrow, and fury. This was not a rumor. Not another whispered theory lost in the chaos of speculation. This was a mother's voice. The weight of grief and truth. Finally breaking through the walls of secrecy that had surrounded her son's tragic death. When the announcement first spread, reporters scrambled to confirm what they were hearing. Crowds flooded online platforms. Hashtags exploded across every channel. And within minutes the story had become the most discussed topic in the world. Unbelievable revelation. The headline screamed. And the public leaned in. Desperate to know what had been uncovered. Desperate to finally learn the truth behind the betrayal that had stolen their beloved star. For the first time since his death, there was hope that answers had finally arrived, and they came from the very person who had suffered the deepest wound of all, his mother. The press conference that followed was unlike anything the entertainment industry had ever witnessed. The room was packed with journalists. Cameras buzzing like restless bees. Lens trained on a woman who had endured unimaginable pain. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the microphone. Her eyes glistening with tears. But her voice carried the determination of someone who had waited too long to be silent. "I cannot keep this hidden any longer," she began. Words slicing through the air with sharp clarity. "My son deserves the truth. The world deserves to know who betrayed him." Gasps rippled through the audience as she produced a folder of documents, photographs, and recordings that she claimed had been in her possession for weeks. The evidence, she explained, had been discovered among her son's belongings, items he had hidden away. Perhaps out of fear. Perhaps because he knew danger lurked closer than anyone realized. For weeks she had debated whether to reveal them, torn between the instinct to protect herself and the burning need to fight for her son's memory. Now, she could wait no longer. The evidence was explosive. Among the items were voice recordings of tense conversations, filled with veiled threats and chilling undertones. There were photographs capturing secret meetings. Timestamps that placed certain individuals in locations they had denied visiting. And handwritten notes that suggested Menglong himself had begun to suspect betrayal before his death. Each piece added weight to her revelation, painting a picture that was impossible to dismiss. The killer was not a stranger. Not a faceless villain from the shadows. It was someone shockingly close, someone trusted. As the evidence was displayed, journalists gasped, some covering their mouths, others frantically scribbling notes or streaming live updates to audiences outside. Fans watching through live feeds erupted in a mix of grief and outrage, their screens filled with messages of disbelief. "How could this be true?" one fan posted. Her words echoed by thousands. How could someone so close to him be capable of such cruelty? The betrayal cut deeper now than ever before. It was no longer speculation, it was proof. The mother's voice broke at times as she explained what the evidence meant. She spoke of her son's fears in the weeks leading up to his death. Sudden changes in behavior. His quiet confessions that he felt watched, manipulated, perhaps even hunted. She admitted she had dismissed some of his worries, leaving him to rest, to trust the people around him. The guilt weighed heavily on her now, as though by ignoring his fears she had allowed the betrayal to succeed. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I should have listened. I should have protected him. But now, I will protect his truth." The reaction was instantaneous and overwhelming. Social media exploded with fury. Hashtags like "Mother Reveals Truth" and "Killer Exposed" dominated every trending list. Vigils sprang up outside the very buildings where Menglong had once performed. Fans holding candles and signs that read "We believe you" and "Truth for Menglong." Industry colleagues issued statements of shock, some confessing that in hindsight they had noticed tensions, strange rivalries, moments of jealousy that now seemed sinister in retrospect. The entire entertainment world reeled, as if the curtain had been pulled back to reveal the darkness festering behind the glamour. Authorities, too, were forced to respond. Within hours, investigators reopened the case with new vigor. admitting that the mother's evidence could no longer be ignored. Officials who had once insisted that all leads had been exhausted were now under fire for failing to uncover what she had revealed. The public demanded accountability, asking how a grieving mother could succeed where entire teams of investigators had faltered. The evidence was now in official custody, and whispers suggested that arrests could follow within days. The most shocking element was still to come: the identity the evidence pointed to. Though she stopped short of naming the killer directly at the press conference, her words made it clear that the betrayal came from within Menglong's inner circle. A friend, a confidant, perhaps even someone he had considered family. The ambiguity only fueled speculation. Online detectives dissecting every photograph, every timestamp, every clue in the documents she revealed. Forums lit up with theories, each one darker than the last. Fans found themselves in a frenzy of grief and rage, desperate to know who among his trusted companions had wielded the knife of betrayal. The press conference ended in chaos. Shouting questions, fans outside crying openly, the mother escorted away by relatives who shielded her from flashing cameras. But her final words echoed like a thunderclap, played endlessly across broadcasts and social media feeds. "My son's killer has hidden for too long. Today, their mask begins to fall. And soon, the whole world will see who they really are." The impact was immediate. Protests erupted in cities across the nation, marching with signs demanding justice, demanding the killer be named and punished. Online petitions surged, gathering millions of signatures in hours, calling for harsher penalties and transparency in the investigation. Politicians, once hesitant to comment on the case, began issuing statements of solidarity, aligning themselves with the public's outrage. The nation was united in grief, but also in fury, its collective heart demanding truth and retribution. As the day drew to a close, one thing was certain: the world would never see the Menglong case the same way again. The killer's identity was no longer a distant mystery but a looming revelation, hanging in the air like a storm about to break. The mother's evidence had cracked the foundation of lies, and the truth, once unthinkable, was now within reach. But as ends, the question remains: when the mask finally falls, will the world be ready for the face that is revealed? The world waited with bated breath after Menglong's mother's shocking press conference. The evidence she revealed had lit a fire that could not be extinguished, and the public demanded only one thing: a name. Betrayed the star, who had hidden behind false smiles while plotting the most devastating act of all. The atmosphere was charged with tension, every headline screaming of betrayal, every fan bracing for the moment the mask would fall. The identity was finally revealed. It stunned the world into silence. There was not a stranger lurking in the shadows, not an anonymous figure fueled by obsession, but someone shockingly close, someone Menglong had trusted deeply. Evidence pointed directly to a long-time associate, a figure who had once been seen by fans as a loyal companion, even as part of his extended family. The revelation shattered illusions overnight. Betrayal from within always cuts the deepest, and this truth was almost too much to bear. Court documents confirmed what the mother's evidence had suggested: phone records, financial transactions, hidden messages, and damning photographs. The killer had not only been close but had actively worked to deceive investigators, creating false alibis and planting misleading clues. Betrayal was not impulsive, it was calculated, deliberate, carried out with chilling precision. Fans wept openly as they read the transcripts, each line more horrifying than the last, each detail another twist of the knife in their hearts. The trial became the most watched event in recent memory. The seat in the courtroom was filled. Cameras rolled continuously. Fans tuned in to live broadcasts. The killer was brought in under heavy guard. Expression cold, detached, unrepentant. Gasps echoed when the charges were read, and the confession, captured on record, was replayed for all to hear. "I did it," he said, calm and steady. The words struck like daggers. Simplicity more chilling than any elaborate explanation. Menglong's mother sat in the front row, watching a photograph of her son, her face pale but resolute. Her presence was a reminder that this was not just a case, it was a family's heartbreak laid bare before the world. When she was asked to testify, the courtroom fell silent. Her voice trembled at first, but grew stronger as she spoke of her son's final weeks, his fears, his quiet warnings that she had dismissed. "I failed to protect him in life," she said. tears falling freely. But I will not fail him in death. Is why I revealed the truth. Her words echoed through the chamber, igniting both sorrow and admiration. The prosecutors built their argument brick by brick, presenting the evidence that had been hidden for too long. How the killer had monitored Yu Menglong's every move. Jealousy had grown into resentment, and how greed had poisoned whatever bond once existed. Witnesses were called, each testimony adding fuel to the fire of outrage. Colleagues described subtle tensions on set, strange remarks made in private, moments that now, in hindsight, seemed like warnings ignored. The defense tried to paint a different picture. They argued mental instability, desperation, even coercion by unnamed others. The weight of the mother's evidence was unshakable. The recordings, the notes, photographs, they told a story no excuse could erase. The jury listened, stone-faced. The layers of betrayal were peeled back. The more the defense struggled, the clearer it became that the killer stood alone in their guilt. Outside the courthouse, the fury of the public burned hotter than ever. Vigils turned into marches. Chants of justice for Menglong echoed through the streets. Fans carried banners with his face, tears mixing with anger. Online, the outrage was relentless. Hashtags like Killer Unmasked and Mother Reveals Truth dominated globally. Memes, posts, and videos spread within hours, leading fans across continents in a storm of solidarity. The betrayal had crossed cultural and national boundaries. Yu Menglong was not just a star, he was a symbol. Betrayal was felt everywhere. The most harrowing moment came when the killer was asked if they felt remorse. Their response was cold, void of regret. "I did what I had to do," they said, their voice unflinching. The courtroom erupted in fury. Gasps and cries colliding into a roar. Even the judge had to call for silence, his gavel striking repeatedly against the wood. That moment was replayed endlessly on television and online, becoming the defining image of the trial, a face of betrayal unrepentant, a wound still bleeding. When the verdict was announced, the nation seemed to hold its breath as one. The judge's voice was firm, unyielding, guilty on all charges. The sentence was life imprisonment without parole. Punishment meant not only to contain the killer but to acknowledge the magnitude of their crime. The courtroom erupted again, this time in a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Yu Menglong's family embraced, their tears unstoppable, while fans outside cheered through their sobs. Justice had been delivered, but it felt hollow. No punishment could bring him back. In the weeks that followed, the fallout continued. Documentaries were announced, books commissioned, interviews lined up. All demanded to know more about how such a betrayal had been possible. Analysts debated whether the industry itself bore some blame, whether the toxic rivalries and relentless pressures had fueled the darkness that ultimately consumed the killer. Politicians pledged reforms, promising greater protections for those in the spotlight. Amid all the noise, one voice rang louder than the rest, the voice of Yu Menglong's mother. In her first interview after the verdict, she sat quietly, holding her son's photograph. Her words were simple but devastating. "They took his life. Cannot take his light. My son lives on in all of you who loved him." Those words resonated across the world, repeated endlessly by fans and echoed by celebrities. Strength became a symbol, her fight for truth immortalized as part of her son's legacy. Memorials were erected in his honor, murals painted across cities, songs dedicated to his memory. Fans organized annual gatherings, ensuring his legacy would never fade. Scholarships and charities were founded in his name, transforming grief into action, betrayal into hope. His work was replayed, his performances revisited, each one now carrying even greater weight. Each note and gesture a reminder of the life that had been stolen too soon. Yet questions lingered, haunting the edges of the story. Had the killer confessed only after the mother's revelation? Were there others who had aided or concealed the crime? And most chilling of all, what truth still remained hidden, waiting to surface when the world least expected it? The case had reached its legal conclusion, but for many, the story was far from over. The betrayal had been exposed. Shadows remained, whispering of secrets not yet told. And so, the story of Yu Menglong ends not with closure but with resilience. The killer's face may be remembered with fury. Yu Menglong's memory will forever be remembered with love. His mother's courage ensured that the truth could no longer be buried. That betrayal would not have the final word. Outrage swept the nation, But love swept the world, carrying his legacy forward, eternal and unbroken. The verdict has been delivered. The killer unmasked. And the nation's fury heard around the world. Yet even as the courtroom doors close, the echoes of this case refuse to fade. Menglong's name lingers in every whisper. Candlelit vigil. Every tear shed by those who refuse to forget him. Death was not just a tragedy, it was a betrayal that pierced millions of hearts. A wound that no sentence can heal. Mother's shocking revelation was more than evidence, it was an act of defiance. A refusal to let lies define her son's memory. In exposing the truth, she gave the world both justice and pain. Justice, because the killer can no longer hide. Pain, because betrayal from within will forever stain the memory of trust. But even in betrayal, love prevails. Continue to sing his songs. Replay his performances. Honor his name. The killer's confession may have rocked the nation. But it is Menglong's light that endures. Brighter than ever. Carried by the millions who loved him. The truth has been revealed. The mask has fallen. And while outrage swept the nation, love for Menglong now sweeps the world, unbroken, eternal, unstoppable. The story of Menglong has shaken the world with betrayal, grief, outrage. But in the end, it is not the killer's confession that defines this chapter, it is the courage of the mother, the unity of fans, and the enduring legacy of a star whose light cannot be dimmed. Justice has been served. His memory lives on, stronger than ever. Hearts of millions who will never forget. Thank you for staying with Red Carpet Revealed through this journey of truth and heartbreak. Your support, your voices, your love for Menglong keep his legacy alive. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because together, we will continue to uncover the truths behind the stars.